All right, so welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be talking all about the news that Canada is ordering TikTok to shut down its operations up north. We've got an article from Bleeping Computer here that has all the details. You know how we do it, though. We're not just going to stick with the headlines. We want to see what's really going on beneath the surface here.
Yeah, and this is one of those stories that really grabs you because it's not just about a popular app, right? This brings up all these questions about national security and how that balances with individual freedoms in a digital world. Like, how do those things go together? It's a tricky puzzle, and that's what we're going to try to unpack today.
So, okay, the Bleeping Computer article lays it out pretty clearly. Canada says TikTok has got to go. They're shutting down all TikTok's Canadian offices. And the reason
Yeah.
national security risk. But here's the thing. They're not really saying why it's a security risk.
Yeah, the article mentions that Canada did this big security review, but the actual details of what they found, totally secret. They say it's because of something called confidentiality provisions. It's kind of like promising to keep a secret. They're saying if they told us why they think TikTok is a risk, it could put their national security in danger.
But come on, that lack of transparency is going to make people wonder what's really going on, right? If they don't tell us what the problem is, how can we know if this is the right way to fix it? It feels a little bit like they're just saying, trust us.
Exactly, and that's how you get people not trusting the government, right? When they take these actions and don't explain why, it makes people wonder if there's something they're hiding. Is there more to the story than they're letting on? It can lead to a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories.
And the thing is, TikTok isn't taking this lying down. They said straight up that they're going to fight this shutdown in court.
Yeah, they're pushing back pretty hard. They're saying that shutting down their Canadian offices is going to hurt a lot of people. People will lose their jobs. The Canadian economy will take a hit, especially for all those Canadians who depend on TikTok to make a living.
And they're really hitting back against those security concerns, too. They're basically saying, Canada, where's your proof? You haven't shown us any evidence that TikTok is a security risk. This is turning into a full-on battle between big tech and the government.
You know, this reminds me of what happened with Huawei a while back, that Chinese telecom company. There were all those same concerns about security risks. This feels like it's part of a pattern. Governments are looking much more closely at these Chinese tech companies and whether they might be connected to the Chinese government in ways we don't know about.
So, okay, let's say I'm a TikToker living in Canada. What does this shutdown actually mean for me? Will I still be able to use the app?
Well, from what the article says, the shutdown order doesn't actually prevent Canadians from using TikTok. So yeah,
They can't actually block access to the platform itself. But the government is basically saying, hey, if you use it, be careful.
pretty much. They're really emphasizing that Canadians need to be super cautious about the information they share online, especially on apps made by companies that are based in countries that have different privacy laws than Canada. Think about it this way. If your data is going through a company in another country, it might be subject to completely different rules, and it could even end up in the hands of a foreign government. This isn't just a Canada thing either. Everyone who uses apps needs to be thinking about these things.
Yeah, the Bleeping Computer article actually linked to this guide from the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity. It's like a how-to manual for protecting your data when you're online. Some really good advice in there, like how to double-check the permissions you give to apps and how to make sure you actually understand their privacy policies and thinking about where your data is being stored. Really important stuff.
And this kind of brings up a bigger point. I mean, this isn't just a Canada issue, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the Bleeping Computer article mentions how other countries have been raising concerns about TikTok for a while. The US, for example. Seems like a lot of governments are struggling with how to handle these super popular apps that are collecting mountains of data on their users.
It's like everyone's watching what's happening with Canada now, right?
Right.
Like to see what happens next. Will this TikTok shutdown actually work? Will other countries decide to do the same thing? It's this fascinating kind of geopolitical chess match playing out in front of us.
It really makes you think about all the Canadian creators and businesses who depend on TikTok, too. What happens to them?
That's exactly the point that TikTok is bringing up, right?
Yeah.
In their response, they're saying this shutdown is going to cost a lot of people their jobs. It could hurt the Canadian economy as a whole. It's not just about data and security anymore. We're talking about people's livelihoods here.
And it gets even more complex when you think about the kind of data that TikTok is collecting. I mean, we're talking about everything. Where you go, what websites you look at, your contact list, even your biometric data like face scans.
Right. And that data could be used for a lot more than just showing you personalized ads. Some experts are worried that it could be used for surveillance or building profiles of people, even influencing what people think about different issues. It's kind of creepy when you think about it.
Definitely. And, we can't forget that all of this is happening at a time when tensions between the West and China are already really high. It's hard not to see this whole TikTok thing as part of that larger geopolitical power struggle.
No question. And that just adds this whole other level of complexity to the conversation. We're not just talking about data privacy anymore. It's about national security. It's about international relations. It's about the balance of power on a global scale.
So where does all this leave us? Governments are trying to do what's best for their citizens,
Yeah.
right? And protect their national interests. And at the same time, tech companies are trying to protect their businesses, protect their users. And then you've got everyone else caught in the middle, just trying to figure out who to believe, what information they can trust.
It's a tough situation all around.
Yeah.
It's like we want to be able to enjoy all these amazing technologies, right? All the ways they connect us with the world. But at the same time, we can't ignore the risks to our privacy, our security. It's a real balancing act, and I don't think there's an easy answer.
The Bleeping Computer article actually mentions this too, how the Canadian government is basically trying to walk a tightrope here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they want to attract foreign investment. They want to be seen as a country that's friendly to the tech industry, but they also have to keep national security in mind.
It's tricky.
Super tricky.
Yeah, it's a classic dilemma. And I think it's one we're going to see come up again and again as technology keeps evolving. It's like the rules of the game are constantly changing,
Yeah.
and we're all just trying to keep up.
So with all that said, what can our listeners take away from this, even if they don't live in Canada or even use TikTok for that matter?
I think one of the biggest things is that this story is a reminder that your data is valuable. And it's worth taking the time to protect it. Like, go through and double check the permissions you're giving to apps. Make sure you understand their privacy policies. Really think about what information you're putting out there online. They might seem like small things, but they can make a big difference.
It really highlights just how powerful these digital platforms are too, the influence they have over our lives, our economies, even our political systems. It's important that we all understand how they work, who controls them, and what their impact is. This whole thing, it's a real eye-opener, isn't it? Like this TikTok situation. It's almost like a glimpse into the future. We're in this completely uncharted territory where the online world is crashing headfirst into real-world politics and security.
Yeah, and the lines between those two worlds, they're getting blurrier all the time. Like everything we do online, all the data we create, the apps we use, it all has real-world consequences now. Governments are still trying to figure out how to deal with that. And honestly, so are we.
The article actually talks about that a bit, about how Canada's trying to find that balance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they obviously want those foreign investments. They want to be seen as a tech-friendly country. But then you have this national security side of things.
That's a tough balancing act.
For sure.
And, the way this whole TikTok case goes down, it could end up setting a precedent.
You think so?
Absolutely. What happens in court, how other countries react, it could totally reshape the tech landscape for years to come.
It's wild to think about. What does the future hold for social media? Will we see governments getting more involved? Will people start being more careful about their data? Or will it just be business as usual with everyone using these platforms, even if there are risks?
It's hard to predict where this is all headed. There's no easy fix. And it's probably going to be a bit of a mess trying to figure out where to draw the lines. But one thing's for sure, this is just the beginning of the conversation.
We've only scratched the surface today. But hopefully this deep dive has given you a better sense of what's really going on here. It's about way more than just TikTok. It's about the future of the internet as a whole, and data privacy and how we all navigate this increasingly digital world.
Exactly. In the end, it all comes down to us making informed decisions, right? Stay curious, ask questions, and don't be afraid to dig a little deeper. There's a ton of information out there. It's our job to sort through it, find what's reliable, and then form our own opinions.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll keep you updated on how this TikTok story develops. But until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.